is melting away the asphalt. Park officials have closed the 3-mile-long roadway known as Firehole Lake Drive and have asked visitors to park on the sides of the road. Park officials warned that stepping on the seemingly solid asphalt could create an illusion, and you could quickly find yourself stepping into hot water. Literally. Park officials say it's basically turning the gravel into oatmeal. This roadway is the main access to such geysers as Old Faithful, the Great Fountain, White Dome, and of course, Firehole Lake. Maintenance teams will now remove the melted asphalt from the roadway and apply sand and lime to absorb the rest. And they hope to have that road open again by next week.
Joining us now is Derek Pitts. He's the Chief Astronomer and Planetarium Programs Director at the Franklin Institute Science Museum in Philadelphia. Good morning, Derek.
Good morning.
So you're here to scare us.
Absolutely.
It's 2.5 times the size of what we thought.
Yes.
How significant is that?
Well, it's really significant because the magma chamber below Yellowstone, it measures about 55 miles wide, 20 miles in length, and it's 6 miles below the surface. This chamber is absolutely packed full of magma, and an eruption from this could really cause widespread destruction all across that region.
As if that was not scary enough, some of the experts now are saying they have no idea when this eruption could take place.
Yeah, there are plenty of earthquakes that happen out there, as you said a little bit earlier, but those earthquakes are indicative of the activity that's going on below ground. Some of it may be caused by water intrusion and other things like that, but the fact of the matter is that there were 3 eruptions of this region before. There's definitely going to be another one in the future. Scientists just can't tell when.
When you say future, though, the reality is this could be real, like 40,000 years future. Is that right?
Yeah, it really could be. We have no idea, though, but there will always be adjusting earthquakes in that region, so that region will remain seismically active. It will also be volcanically active. There will be small volcanic eruptions in that region. It's just the big one that people really have to be concerned about. And if we can get the science a little bit more refined, we'll have a better idea of when we might have some ballpark idea of when to expect something might happen.
Okay, so now you're starting to comfort me a little bit, because I was going to ask you here, I was going to say, are we going to get any warning, like maybe a century or so, that this thing's coming?
The really cool thing about how science is working in seismology and volcanology these days is that scientists can really model the area well, because there are seismic detectors, 40 of them, all around the region, measuring in different ways, and essentially taking an X-ray, if you will, of the ground below, so that they can figure out what's going on better and have a better way to get a grip on how to say when something could possibly be coming.
How were the earlier estimates so undervalued? I mean, how come scientists didn't realize how big that well was?
Well, it's very difficult to have any idea of what's going on underground. I mean, we're looking at something that is 6 to 9 miles below the surface of the Earth. It's enormous. We never thought that the magma chamber could be that big, and so we didn't know what the parameters were around which we had to measure. But now that there are so many more sensors coming to the site to be used, you know, the advances in technology and model making and things like that help scientists to get a better picture, so we have a better idea, more accurate than in the past. 30,000 years ago was measured to be about 2,000 times greater than the Mount St. Helens eruption. 2,000 times bigger. That's enormous. It's enough to, the last eruption spread 10 feet of ash in regions 1,000 miles away. So that's a pretty big eruption.
I mean, Yellowstone National Park is also located in a really seismically active region, isn't it?
Well, you have to think that the whole region essentially is the basin of an ancient volcano, under which is this enormous sort of chamber of magma that's causing the region to heat.
A supervolcano, which in case of eruption will blow all of North America and doom about half of the world to slow death, is starting to wake up. Can't we do anything about it? First, let's decide on what is a supervolcano. It's nothing like a regular volcano, a cone-shaped formation with a vent. It's more of a huge depression with the eruption area covering a few thousand square kilometers. For instance, a supervolcanic eruption on the Indonesian island of Sumatra caused 6 years of sulfuric acid rains. Add to this the dust clouds blocking the sun for quite a while, and you will get a picture very similar to nuclear winter. The supervolcano left no more than 10,000 people on the entire planet. Nowadays, there's also a threat of volcano eruption. There is a supervolcano in Yellowstone National Park, USA, at the height of 2,500 meters. Until recently, it has been considered dormant. On the outside, Yellowstone National Park is covered with a picturesque landscape. Well, on the inside, it is a vast valley filled with molten magma. For thousands of years, magma has been filling huge underground reservoirs, melting rock, becoming so thick that volcanic gases causing eruptions in regular volcanoes can't escape. Thereby, upward pressure from gigantic subsurface molten magma bodies make the surface of the Earth begin to swell. That lasts for hundreds of thousands of years until the swelling explodes. According to scientific data, the period between supervolcanic eruptions constitutes around 600,000 years. Based on that, we are bound to witness the next cataclysm. Originally, researchers scheduled it for 2075, but in summer 2003, strange things began to happen in Yellowstone National Park. The ground temperature rose to the boiling point. There appeared fissures releasing hydrogen sulfide and carbon dioxide, volcanic gases contained in magma. These factors led scientists to believe that magma had escaped from its chamber and is reaching the surface at the speed that has increased by several times. Due to that, the time the volcano was believed to erupt was changed by almost 50 years. While magma is at the depth of 10 kilometers from the mouth of the supervolcano, it's too early to worry. But as soon as it rises to 2 to 3 kilometers, we'll have serious grounds for concern. And we do have grounds for concern. 2003, Norris Geyser Basin is closed for tourists due to increased volcano activity and high water temperature. 2006, the land in the park is found to be rising 10 centimeters per year. 4th of March 2014, the White House ordered the U.S. Geological Agency to restrict access to the information on earthquakes and gas emissions. March 2014, bisons and elks abandoned the park. April 2014, the water temperature in the lakes rose above 20 degrees Celsius. According to scientists, in case of explosion, the picture will be more dramatic than that of apocalypse. It will start with the land in Yellowstone National Park abruptly going up and overheating. And when the immense pressure bursts, caldera, the resulting mouth will erupt thousands of cubic meters of lava that will resemble a column of fire. The explosion will be accompanied by massive earthquake and disastrous lava flows spreading at the speed of hundreds of kilometers per hour. The eruption will last several days. However, people and animals will primarily die not from ash and lava, but from suffocation and poisoning by sulfuretted hydrogen. By this time, the air throughout western regions of the USA will be poisoned so much that humans will last no longer than 5 to 7 minutes. Researchers do not challenge the fact that Yellowstone Giant will trigger the eruption of hundreds of regular volcanoes worldwide. Furthermore, the eruption of volcanoes situated on the ocean bed will generate numerous tsunamis, which will flood coastal areas and all island countries. What will follow can be described as volcanic winter. The U.S. President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology has come to the conclusion that it will be impossible to rescue the entire population. A few months' time before the explosion will see the evacuation of major scientists, military servicemen, high-tech experts, and billionaires. Millionaires are very unlikely to escape due to insufficient space on the Ark. Even now, there are millionaires who are getting rid of their property and moving to the Eastern Hemisphere. Such an Ark will presumably be the African country Liberia. That's where the passengers of the Ark will try to hole up for several years in an underground bunker. So, when will the supervolcano erupt? Nobody knows for sure, but that will be quite a sight. Do you know how to survive a supervolcano explosion? Write your answer in the comments below. If you liked our video, please push the like button.
happened, many visitors to Yellowstone were blissfully unaware that it was volcanic. After all, where was the cone-shaped volcano, like Mount St. Helens or Vesuvius? They didn't realize that they were actually standing on top of it, that beneath their feet was one of the largest volcanoes in the world. The truth is, we were only just beginning to understand the workings of the park ourselves.
The vast reservoir of red-hot molten rock that lies just a few kilometers beneath where you're sitting now. The sleeping dragon that powers all of the geysers and hot springs, mud spots and steam vents that draw people here in their millions every year.
Are you serious? Are you serious? Get some coffee, everybody. Calm down in Yellowstone. Yes, and Montana, they were hit with a very strong jolt, a powerful 4.5 magnitude earthquake recorded in Yellowstone National Park in the evening last night, but it's been followed by several earthquakes, including a 2.7 all the way to 3.1. Here's the whole thing. It's very shallow, very shallow. Let me give you an update now what's been going on. If you guys remember, 2 days ago, I noticed that there was a 3.7 or so earthquake in Yellowstone there in Montana. And I said, I don't like it. I don't like it. There was a couple more smaller aftershocks. I kept saying, I don't like it. I don't like it. Don't let this super volcano open up and awake.
The first sign of trouble will be increasing seismic activity. The ground would rise as pressure from the molten rock begins to grow.
There would be a lot of ground deformation, and then if it was moving up slowly enough, we would actually start seeing large changes in the geyser basins.
Yellowstone in northwest Wyoming, land of geysers, mountains, and lakes, is also sitting atop a super volcano. And it just took what scientists describe as a deep breath, causing miles of ground to rise dramatically. So what does this mean? Well, joining us right now is Michio Kaku. He is a physics professor at the City University of New York and the author of the upcoming book, Physics of the Future. Thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be on.
So the last time this happened was 640,000 years ago. We're due?
We are due. Forget Yogi Bear. Okay, forget Old Faithful. It's sitting on top of a sleeping giant. Now, if you're sleeping next to an 800-pound gorilla, you monitor every burp, every snore of this gigantic gorilla, because when it blows, it could destroy the United States as we know it.
This is a pretty scary prospect. I want to just show people what we're talking about here when we talk about this super volcano, and we have a little thing to show you, a map with some of the details. So that's where it is. It's beneath Yellowstone. It's been there, as we know. I guess this has erupted 3 times in 2.1 million years. But what they're worried about is the fact that they say that the ground has started to swell in levels that they have not seen before, 10 inches in some places in the past year. What does that tell us?
It tells us that there is activity in this supervolcano, which erupts roughly every 600 million years. And the last eruption was 640 million years ago.
Oh, 640 million or 1,000?
1,000 years ago, I'm sorry, you're right.
Because then we had some more time.
Then we have some more time, right. But that's what's making us very nervous, because the cycle time corresponds to the present-day era. So every single burp, murmur of this gigantic potential supervolcano, including the rise of the sea level, has to be watched very carefully.
All right, so when we talk about this, and we have pictures pictures of Mount St. Helen erupting back in 1980. Let's just show this right now. You say that an explosion with this supervolcano under Yellowstone, and there we're seeing the Mount St. Helens, would be 1,000 times bigger than this. What type of damage are we talking about here?
We're talking about immediate damage out to 100 miles from the site. That is total devastation, basically wiping out everything in sight. However, the real damage goes out to 500 miles if you include volcanic ash, poisonous gases, death of wildlife and vegetation, and that's a ring about 1,000 miles across. That's the heartline of America.
It would pretty much wipe out Earth as we know it?
It would wipe out the United States as we know it. And again, we don't want to panic anybody. It could happen tomorrow, or it could happen 100,000 years from now. It's black magic trying to predict exactly when it's going to blow, but we do know one thing. One day, it will blow.
So, and you say that something on this scale is what wiped out the dinosaurs.
65 million years ago, another supervolcano coincided with this meteor that hit Mexico, and we think it was a double whammy that knocked out the dinosaurs. So it's something that we take very seriously, but again, the cycle time is measured on the scale of hundreds of thousands of years.
Would there be anything we could do to prepare or to get people out? I mean, how much of a warning might we get with this eruption?
All you can do is run. You don't get much warning. What happened is the ground starts to rise, more and more earthquakes take place, more ash and volcanic gases start to be unleashed. That's about the only warning we get, because we do not have a good way to predict volcanic eruptions.
Are we getting a better way to do it, or are we just at the mercy of Mother Nature?
We're still clueless. We're still monitoring it very carefully, looking for the warning signs. That's why this sudden rise in the Earth, even though it's not immediately dangerous, is being looked at very carefully, because we have no experience with supervolcanoes. We've seen Mount St. Helens, we've seen Krakatoa, but a supervolcano erupting in our lifetime, we have no understanding of the scope of that thing. We just see the evidence of previous eruptions.
It's amazing. So you say it could be tomorrow, it could be in 100,000 years, but it's under there.
It's there, and it will happen. At one point, it will destroy North America as we know it.
It's happened in the last 24 hours, all right? Now, there's been several quakes. Some of them 4.6 in Indonesia, 4.5 in Fiji. We understand these areas. 4.6 the Philippines, 4.5 Papua New Guinea, 4.2 in Chile, 4.5. This is when it happened. Yellowstone last night, around 6:48 p.m. Mountain Time. Here we go. A 4.5 jolt in Yellowstone National Park, followed by a 2.7. And remember, this 4.5 earthquake that hit Yellowstone in Montana was only 9.4 kilometers deep, followed by a 2.7, then another 2.6, then a 3.1. All of these earthquakes taking place within about a 3-minute period. Then the Philippines had a 4.9, and then here goes Yellowstone, 2.9, and then Arkansas, Harrison, Arkansas, then must have felt the jolt, because then Harrison, Arkansas had a quake of 2.9. Then Washington State, over just not too far from the Yellowstone area, had a 3.6. Then we kept going and kept studying what was going on. Alaska had a couple quakes. We had a 4.2 in El Salvador, and a 2.9 in Ferndale, California, 3.3 in Ferndale, California, a 4.3 in Argentina, a 4.7 in Papua New Guinea. Alaska had a couple more quakes of 3.6 and 2.7, and then it happened again. Yellowstone, powerful 2.8, again very shallow. Alaska with a 2.9, Chile with a 4.4, and then Yellowstone, just a few minutes ago, a 2.7. So we continue to see these quakes. They're not slowing down, folks. Yellowstone National Park, Montana, Yellowstone, Montana is where this quake epicenter is, and the aftershocks continue. And remember, we're dealing here with a super volcano with the potential of an eruption. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if, and scientists say when it goes, and who knows, that could be what, 100 years from now, 100 days from now, no guarantees on this thing, but it is a massive super volcano that is so large that it would literally destroy the northwest portion of the United States and part of southwestern Canada. That would just be from the initial eruption and the shock waves and the fire and the brimstone, the smoke and the ash would really send the United States and Canada into a dark winter for about 3 years. Vegetation would start dying. You have to understand, we're talking about a cataclysmic, apocalyptic, nearly extinction of this side of the hemispheres.
The lava would shatter the Earth's surface with an explosion 10 times larger than Mount St. Helens. A hurricane of hot gases would spread out in all directions as the ash cloud reaches 80,000 feet into the air. Already larger than anything man has experienced, this would be just the beginning of a Yellowstone super eruption. Within days, a second enormous eruption would begin, then another. Soon, a ring of monstrous explosions 50 miles wide would be spewing molten rock and burning gases across the landscape.
Certainly within 100 miles of Yellowstone, there wouldn't be much that was not destroyed.
So this is not nothing to play with. And if you're having a 4.5 earthquake followed by a lot of aftershocks right there, you got to watch it. And I said this 2 days ago. Now, I'm not a seismologist. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not a climatologist. I'm not a cosmetologist. I'm not an ophthalmologist or even a cardiologist. But I am I've been watching what's going on. How's that? A country preacher in the cornfields of Indiana. I can just tell you, I know what the Bible says. From eschatology is concerned, these are the types of events that the Bible spoke of. Great earthquakes.
We don't know how long it's going to just sit there before it decides to go off.
If sometime in the future it were to erupt, as it has before, the Yellowstone volcano would overwhelm everything within 100 miles and disrupt lives across the globe for years.
Breaking news out of Yellowstone. 5 earthquakes in the last hour. The largest being a 4.5. All right, let's see if I can find it. Here's the event. 7 miles east-southeast of Grayling, Montana, 9.4 kilometers deep. There were others associated with this swarm, a 2.9, 2.8, 3.1, a 2.7, and then the initial 4.5. Looking at the seismograms right here in West Yellowstone. Let's go right to it. There it is. That's the 4.5. Those are probably the aftershocks, the 2.9. I think there was a 3. I'm sure they were felt all over the entire park. There's more of them there. Where's this one at? Holmes Hill. Let's go way over here and see what we got. Parker Peak. Absolutely. Hawks Rest. Wow. That's busy. Red Rock Ranch. Hitchstone. Yeah, it was felt all over the entire park, I'm sure, easily. So anyway, small swarm at Yellowstone, largest being a 4.5, and that's been within the last hour. And I'm sure there'll be more to come. Yellowstone's been very busy here recently.
What I didn't know was that then NASA has been flying the Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy. They've been doing flyovers, mysterious flyovers, the Yellowstone area. And now we're hearing more information. Then we had the earthquake last night of 4.5, several aftershocks, which I've already discussed in my video earlier this morning. We will be talking about this afternoon. It is that critical. Now, let me just share with you 4.5 earthquake, 5 aftershocks, this larger than 2.5, have hit Yellowstone today on this June 16th. They're reporting it, while NASA is flying the world's largest airborne observatory over the supervolcano. So we're not playing. We tell you, is this thing waking up? I brought this up 2 days ago, even before the quake, even before the flyovers, just because I've been watching earthquakes now every day for over 7 years and reporting where every 188th day we had a major quake that hit exactly on the 188th day, 7 times. That was back in 2012 and 13 and so on. So look, we know what we're talking about here, that there is something going on up in Yellowstone. Matter of fact, is the Yellowstone volcano awakening? Well, the mysterious flyovers by the SOFIA over Yellowstone. Currently, NASA puts their Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy. the world's largest, most sensitive airborne observatory every day in the air. And if NASA puts this in the air, it's important, folks. They don't do this every day. And when they do, the bird of prey doesn't go hunting unless there's something to hunt. They're watching something. You can bet on that, and that's the truth. Matter of fact, this is it has a 8.2 foot diameter infrared telescope. Makes it possible to make scientific observations that are impossible for even the largest and highest of Earth-based telescopes to see. Already 4 days during the sunrise and sunset, NASA has been monitoring the sun, but yesterday they turned their lenses toward Yellowstone National Park. Remember, the massive lake of molten carbon, the size of Mexico. What? That is, are you seriously telling me that's the size of this thing? And it is, and it's under Yellowstone. That's why I tell you, if this thing was to erupt, literally erupt, it is cataclysmic for the Western Hemisphere. There would be people survive, but it would be post-apocalyptic. And they would be wandering around. This is not... So when you read the Bible talks about great earthquakes on the planet. Tremendous famines. Disease, plagues, pestilences of a biblical proportion. Chaos, confusion, sorrows, great pain. A supervolcano eruption would cause just that. Death would be beyond comprehension. So what I'm trying to share with you is if somebody's watching, if you're saved, you have none of the fear. We're talking here, wrath of God. If you're not saved, this is the volatility of this world you live in. Very volatile, very dangerous. Perilous times, even, Paul said.
A supervolcano waking up in the USA. A supervolcano, which in case of eruption will blow all of North America and doom about half of the world to slow death, is starting to wake up. Can't we do anything about it? First, let's decide on what is a supervolcano. It's nothing like a regular volcano, a cone-shaped formation with a vent. It's more of a huge depression with the eruption area covering a few thousand square kilometers. For instance, a supervolcanic eruption on the Indonesian island of Sumatra caused 6 years of sulfuric acid rains. Add to this the dust clouds blocking the sun for quite a while, and you will get a picture very similar to nuclear winter. The supervolcano left no more than 10,000 people on the entire planet. Nowadays, there's also a threat of volcano eruption. There is a supervolcano in Yellowstone National Park, USA, at the height of 2,500 meters. Until recently, it has been considered dormant. On the outside, Yellowstone National Park is covered with a picturesque landscape. Well, on the inside, it is a vast valley filled with molten magma. For thousands of years, magma has been filling huge underground reservoirs, melting rock, becoming so thick that volcanic gases causing eruptions in regular volcanoes can't escape. Thereby, upward pressure from gigantic subsurface molten magma bodies make the surface of the Earth begin to swell. That lasts for hundreds of thousands of years until the swelling explodes. According to scientific data, the period between supervolcanic eruptions constitutes around 600,000 years. Based on that, we are bound to witness the next cataclysm. Originally, researchers scheduled it for 2075, but in summer 2003, strange things began to happen in Yellowstone National Park. The ground temperature rose to the boiling point. There appeared fissures releasing hydrogen sulfide and carbon dioxide, volcanic gases contained in magma. These factors led scientists to believe that magma had escaped from its chamber and is reaching the surface at the speed that has increased by several times. Due to that, the time the volcano was believed to erupt was changed by almost 50 years. While magma is at the depth of 10 kilometers from the mouth of the supervolcano, it's too early to worry. But as soon as it rises to 2 to 3 kilometers, we'll have serious grounds for concern. And we do have grounds for concern. 2003. Norris Geyser Basin is closed for tourists due to increased volcano activity and high water temperature. 2006. The land in the park is found to be rising 10 centimeters per year. 4th of March 2014, the White House ordered the U.S. Geological Agency to restrict access to the information on earthquakes and gas emissions. March 2014, bisons and elks abandoned the park. April 2014, the water temperature in the lakes rose above 20 degrees Celsius. According to scientists, in case of explosion, the picture will be more dramatic than that of apocalypse. It will start with the land in Yellowstone National Park abruptly going up and overheating. And when the immense pressure bursts, caldera, the resulting mouth will erupt thousands of cubic meters of lava that will resemble a column of fire. The explosion will be accompanied by massive earthquake and disastrous lava flows spreading at the speed of hundreds of kilometers per hour. The eruption will last several days. However, people and animals will primarily die not from ash and lava, but from suffocation and poisoning by sulfuretted hydrogen. By this time, the air throughout western regions of the USA will be poisoned so much that humans will last no longer than 5 to 7 minutes. Researchers do not challenge the fact that Yellowstone Giant will trigger the eruption of hundreds of regular volcanoes worldwide. Furthermore, the eruption of volcanoes situated on the ocean bed will generate numerous tsunamis, which will flood coastal areas and all island countries. What will follow can be described as volcanic winter. The U.S. President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology has come to the conclusion that it will be impossible to rescue the entire population. A few months' time before the explosion will see the evacuation of major scientists, military servicemen, high-tech experts, and billionaires. Millionaires are very unlikely to escape due to insufficient space on the Ark. Even now, there are millionaires who are getting rid of their property and moving to the Eastern Hemisphere. Such an Ark will presumably be the African country Liberia. That's where the passengers of the Ark will try to hole up for several years in an underground bunker. So, when will the supervolcano erupt? Nobody knows for sure, but that will be quite a sight.
Are you serious? It's getting very serious.
volcano is ready to blow. Scientists warn. Building to blow. This is the Long Valley caldera of California. It's not just Yellowstone that is ready to blow. We also have another old area, the Long Valley caldera, located in the area of California. It would take in California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah. Certainly hoping that all these states have evacuation plans, including filter masks to wear and emergency food and water. The way the Long Valley volcano is acting, you might need this as soon as possible. When people think of California, they may think of earthquakes, but a lot of people don't know that there are volcanoes there as well. At least two, the Lassen Peak and the much larger Long Valley caldera near Mammoth Lakes. In 1915, Lassen Peak erupted and wrecked a huge portion of the state of California. Now, over the last 100 days, the much larger Long Valley caldera has been acting up. It's acting up with uplift, with earthquakes, and it's doing what geologists and the U.S. Geological Survey are calling concern. The caldera, the mouth of the volcano, is moving. According to scientific instruments monitoring the area, the United States Geological Survey, that's the USGS, in the area in the vicinity of the Long Valley caldera, find that it is deforming and it's moving rapidly compared to previous records. Now, how sure are they this is happening? They're 95% confident, and the data assembled is significant. It shows that a recent time span, the amount of the movement is causing statistically significant strain in the rocks of the area. It is not a conspiracy theory or conjecture or amateur geological antics. This is from the USGS itself. This is the actual data. And now you can see it in the article I'll leave below for you. It may look like gobbledygook to you, but you're not alone. You can scroll down and understand the explanations. USGS instrument measurements. It says the following exceed SRN 1.5, and at the 95% CI, the assemble is significant. Time span is 31 out of 730 days. To be significant at the 95% CI, counts need to exceed 20 units in either mm per year or nanostrain per year. So you can be saved the trouble. All of the readings in the first data exceed the 20 units. The following units exceed SNR 2.0, and at the 95% CI, the assemble is significant. This time span is 31 out of 730 days. To be significant at the 95% CI level, counts need to be 9 units in either mm per year or nanostrain per year. And now again, they save us the trouble. All the data in the second set exceeds 9 units. One is read by a lot. And the following exceed SRN 3.0 at the 95% CI, assemble significant. Time span is 31 out of 730 days. Significantly at the 95% CI level, counts need to exceed 1 unit in either mm per year or nanostrain per year. And again, they save us the trouble. They all exceed 1 unit. The ones in red by a lot. So what does this mean? So judging by the deformation directions and the rates, the magma plume is subsiding over the previous caldera and rising just south of it. This is where the earthquakes are swarming now. The entire thing is tilting away from the mountains, with the northern edge of the old caldera sinking, the southern edge moving north. It's as if pushed by some force in the swarm region, and this does not look at all good. This is what the USGS puts it as being. Increasing volcanic unrest, including earthquake swarms, ground deformation, and carbon dioxide gas emissions in the Long Valley area since 1980, increases the chance of an eruption occurring in the near future. scientists still lack adequate data to reliably calculate by how much. Volcanic unrest in some other large volcanic system has persisted for decades or even centuries without leading to the eruption. But since volcanic unrest can escalate to an eruption quickly in a few weeks or days or less, the USGS scientists are monitoring the activity closely. And for those of you who might not quite comprehend this, they're putting it very clearly in another way. Out of nowhere, the mountain started moving several times faster than it's ever moved before, in a direction it is not supposed to be moving, while shaking like a leaf and belching poisonous gas. So that should be clear enough for just anyone. The USGS has also issued a status statement about the volcano which reads as follows. Long Valley Caldera, California, Mono County, latitude 37.7 north, longitude 118.87 degrees west, elevation 2,600 meters or 8,530 feet, volcano type caldera, composition basalt to rhyolite, most recent eruption 16 to 17,000 years ago, nearby towns Mammoth Lakes, threat potential very high. Oh joy! Threat potential is very high, just what we need. Earthquakes. There are huge swarms of earthquakes. There's a whole list here. So the ground is deforming, carbon monoxide and earthquakes. We all know earthquakes are the pretty reliable indicator of a pending eruption. How many earthquakes have there been and how big were they? Well, there's been 284 earthquakes in the last 5 days. And the report says, notice the depth column that very many of the earthquakes are happening at a negative depth. That means above ground. How does that happen? The volcano itself that rises 8,550 feet above ground, and some of the earthquakes are higher than ground level. That means that it's happening in the volcano itself. The above ground in the volcano quakes are highlighted in either yellow, less than 2 kilometers above ground, or in red, more than 2 kilometers above ground. What causes earthquakes inside a volcano higher than the ground level? Well, that's lava moving upwards. So that's bad. That's bad. A negative depth above ground. Lava moving upwards. That means that it's about to erupt. There's a whole list of earthquakes here. I mean, most of the article is all this, if you care to see them one by one. Now, do you have your attention on this? That's good, because we're told exactly what an eruption of the long lava caldera could mean. According to the USGS, the volcano last erupted, as we said, 16 to 17,000 years ago. Before that, they know it also erupted 760,000 years ago, because they tracked the volcanic ash deposits and found they covered an area shown in green on the map. Of course, the USGS could be correct. Perhaps all this activity and earthquakes and ground deformation at a rate they've never seen before, the whole mountain moving in a direction it's not supposed to be moving and belching toxic gas, might mean nothing. But then again, it could be what Mount St. Helens was about to happen when it blew just before it blew. We just figured the good folks of California, Nevada, and other nearby states might want to know what the facts are and decide for themselves if all this speculatory, unusual stuff means nothing. So if there is actually a big eruption coming, those big flows of gray-colored ash that careen down the mountain, called pyroclastic flows, move at about 500 miles an hour. If you see movies, you see the people running, trying to run it out, trying to get out faster than the pyroclastic flow, and some of them do make it with a car. That's not true. That does not happen, because it moves at 500 miles an hour. That's almost as fast as an airplane. And the temperature of those gray, billowy clouds of ash, that's 800 degrees. So you can count outrunning it. You will not survive it. It'll because the speed of the ash cloud knocks down everything in its path, and the temperature of the ash cloud causes everything to burst into flames. Now, for those in the green-colored area, you should be aware that volcanic ash is not actually ash. It is pulverized rock. It will stall your car by clogging the air intake, and if you get out of your car to see why it stalled and you breathe in a few whiffs of ash, it turns into mud-like sludge in your lungs, and it turns into cement in a couple of good whiffs, and you're suffocating on the sludge. There is no treatment, nor cure, you're just dead. So there are more quakes, and they're getting stronger. In the hours spent researching and writing this article, USGS has begun reporting even more earthquakes, and they're getting stronger. Now, a brief history, we said approximately 760,000 years ago, the volcanic eruption took place in the northern portions of present-day California, which was 2,000 times greater than the more recent eruption of Mount St. Helens in Washington state. 2,000 times greater. The eruption caused a caldera 10 miles wide and 20 miles in length. It's estimated that the eruption left a lava flow that covered 1,500 square miles and was caused the placement of 150 cubic miles of volcanic material. The ash from the volcano was thrown as far east as Nebraska and Kansas, all the way to the Pacific Ocean in the west, into Idaho, Wyoming in the north, and even northern parts of Mexico. In the modern day world, the volcano in question has not had any volcanic activity over 200 years. Well, this is an old article I'm reading from. This is from 2007. Well, we just read to you what happened. It is active, and it's pushing and belching and rising, and we have the negative earthquakes, which means that the lava is flowing through the volcano. In 1980, Volcano Watch was set at an all-time high after Mount St. Helens eruption, which took the lives of many bystanders caught in the path of the violent explosion. Which such a disaster freshened the minds of American people, the USGS began searching for other volcanoes in the continental United States that might also present a danger. We also have Yellowstone ready to burst. Now, the ways the caldera in Long Valley caldera is monitored, being constantly monitored by USGS, remote sensors, seismicity, ground deformation, low-lying atmospheric gases, hydrology, that is the lakes, wells, fumarole springs, and participation of the caldera are continually monitored to record the order to be read by USGS. The data is then compared to other known volcanic patterns that the USGS might be able to make a safe and timely prediction on the possibility of another eruption. I'll leave links below for you for this, so heads up, they've given us a warning. This is active, and the negative earthquakes mean that the lava is making its way up through the volcano, up to the caldera. That's not good. I'll leave links below for you for this.